Welcome to the Summer of Stories, an interview series that goes behind the brands of entrepreneurs who were the first to do it in their families, communities, and/or industries, and uncovers the stories that embolden them to get it done. I'm Gabrielle Gwyneth, a brand storyteller, and our guest today is Amandine Ayala, Tea and Branding Alchemist, an intuitive business mentor and business development partner for entrepreneurs and social change makers in the cannabis industry. Amandine is also the owner of an animal sanctuary and retreat center, Chez Amandine, nestled in the Spanish countryside. Welcome, Amandine. It's so good to have you with us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So we met a couple of years together, a couple of years ago, and we worked together, which is how I got to know your story and the fact that both tea and animals have long been a part of just who you are in your life. And while you live in Spain at the moment, you grew up in France. So can you tell us about that childhood and the role that tea and animals played in your life?
I didn't hear the first half of the question. You said what role that played in my life growing up, right?
Yeah, tea and animals.
Yes, I think you said yes. I have rural internet, so just so everybody knows. Right, so animals. I've always had animals. Never like now, but we've always had cats and guinea pigs. At one point, we had an actual pig, rabbits. My grandmother always had chickens. Like it was just a thing in our house. We loved animals. My mom loved animals always, and yeah, they were always present. And as a very emotional child growing up in a household where talking about your emotions wasn't necessarily the norm, I found in animals a refuge, a place where I could be myself and, cry to my cat or my rabbit without being judged and still feeling loved. So I think that's how I became so attached to animals. I know how soothing they can be. I would love to be certified very soon in animal therapy because I know how beneficial being around animals and nature in general can be. And that comes from that time in my childhood. As for the tea aspect, herbal tea is something I've always enjoyed. My mum used to disappear at night and come back with some fresh verbena, and we would just have it with some hot water and some lemon. So just very simple, sometimes some honey, very simple infusion. And so I was drinking herbal tea my whole life without really thinking about it. And when I went through a deep depression after I quit my corporate job to start my own business, I approached herbs and teas and healing with an intention. And it was really to explore my creativity and to make myself feel better with specific herbs and their properties, etc. And that's when I realized the power of pairing an intention with the benefits of plants. So my relationship with tea and herbs has really evolved over time from something that's nice and warm to drink that I enjoyed my whole life to something that can be really targeted and very intentional and part of something bigger, like a ritual, which is what I do now. If I have my cup of tea, I really make it a whole thing. And it doesn't mean like bells and whistles and stuff, but just the pausing, the doing just that, the intention, which transforms the whole mundane act of making and having a cup of tea.
Yeah, wow, that's really beautiful. Before we get into the tea aspect of your business, let's talk a bit about you winding up in the Netherlands, because I think that's maybe just before you started your company or where you went when you started your company. How did you make that transition?
So I was living in Paris at the time, after living in the UK where I studied, and Paris was never, it was never my place, you know. But I know lots of people are like, what? But it just wasn't for me. No. And so I was working in private banking at the time. I was 26 years old. And I was like, I'm a person, when I feel something's not working, I will make a really radical change to change that, right? And it might take a while, but once I make the decision, this is not working for me, then I will make some big changes, as I'm sure we're going to discuss, and that, you know, brought me here. So I decided that's it. And I wasn't attached to a particular place. I had things on my short list, like Australia was high at the top of my list. I started applying for jobs everywhere. And this company got back to me in Australia, in fact, about a role I applied in Australia, and asked me if I'd be interested in the same role in Amsterdam. Now, I had been to Amsterdam before for a couple of days, 2 or 3 times. With friends, and I absolutely loved it. But it's very different when you live somewhere, right? Than when you just visit. And I said yes to the position, moved to Amsterdam within 2 months, and absolutely fell in love with that city. This absolutely loved Amsterdam. I ended up staying there for 7 years in total, and I was back at work, had different corporate jobs, was kind of climbing the ladder and traveling a lot and working a lot. And that's when I decided to quit my corporate job to start my own business. But that's Amsterdam, honestly, was a bit of a
Random
thing that happened. And it was great. I love when that happens, right? It was amazing. Amsterdam will forever be my heart. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was there for the first time 2 summers ago, and it was amazing. Yeah, I would love to go back. But is that how then you got into the cannabis industry when you moved to Amsterdam?
Yeah. So when I quit my job, yes. However, it wasn't. I've been a cannabis consumer for most of my adult life. It's just that, of course, moving to Amsterdam, where it's depenalized, where there are coffee shops, where there are things available, you start, similar to the tea thing I was sharing earlier, actually, you start educating yourself and being more intentional about your cannabis consumption. That's what happened to me anyway. And I was really interested about it. I realized how I hadn't put 2 and 2 together about a lot of things, and how it helped me in some ways, and how also sometimes it didn't help me, depending on what I was consuming and how and what was the intention. And that's when I also started with the education, realizing how it wasn't available to everyone, especially those who could help massively. And there's nothing that fires you up more than injustice, right? So I was like, I don't get it. I didn't get it. It's a plant. And so when I started my own business, it was kind of a natural thing for me to go into that. And I also felt like the whole stigma attached to it was unfair. It still isn't. And for women, I felt like there wasn't really safe space in Europe. I don't know if you went to coffee shops when you were in Amsterdam, but most of them are very cold and masculine, and, you know, you might not feel, let's say you live in Amsterdam, you finish your job at 5, you want to go and have a cup of tea and a joint. And there's a group of 10 tourists there. You might, that's not really what you're looking for. And I felt like that wasn't available, definitely not in Europe. While at the time in the US, of course, you started seeing really nice, elegant intentional brands. But yeah, I was missing that. I was missing that because I couldn't find myself in anything that was out there. And my first business was a smoking accessory for women business. So this is how I went into things, and then it evolved into the hemp tea blends, because that's when I started creating, and I was like, I need to share this with the world.
Yeah. So can you tell us about your company now, Bloem Moi? That is the one you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Bloem Moi is a luxury hemp self-care business. I believe that the intentional consumption of hemp, cannabis, and plants in general is key to self-care. And as a woman entrepreneur myself, I know how important that is, how easy it is to put aside because of our priorities. And I know with my range of tea, I'm really aiming to remind everyone to take a time out, in your day, infuse a touch of luxury in your day, make that cup of tea intentional, take a breath, 20 minutes, but even if you have 10 minutes, like that can really switch your day around, right? And giving ourselves this special time, this pause, is really something that then ripples out into our work, into our life, into our families, etc. So it's all about self-care. It's all about giving yourself what you need when you need it, whether it's a cup of tea, a breath, a walk in nature. That's really our mission there, to be that daily reminder that you matter most.
And how did you come up with the idea? I said, how did you come up with the idea?
Oh, thank you. I think I lost you there. How did I come up with the idea? So I mentioned I quit my job in corporate, kind of out of the blue, and I got really, really depressed because I've always worked since I was 16. I've always worked, and I'm always looking to get that external validation, to impress somebody, to work hard, to get that pat on the back, yay, to get that big check, when I was working in sales. And so then from day to another, I don't have anyone to impress anymore but myself. That was really tough for me, because nobody cared if I got out of bed, if I showed up at my desk, except for me. So for a while, it was really hard to get off the couch, and all the stuff that are like basic necessities for me became self-care, like take a shower, feed myself a proper meal. And I started reading again a lot, and getting help in therapy, and slowly getting myself out of that place. And I decided to explore my creativity. That was clearly something I had ignored for years. I used to say, like, I'm not a creative person, actually out loud. I think that's hilarious. And so I was like, well, you know what? I love herbal tea. I think I can find some really good herbs that can help with whatever I'm dealing with. So I'm going to start blending teas. And it came naturally for me to blend, to incorporate cannabis in it. A friend of mine had given me a bunch of like cannabis leaves. This is with THC, right? I was trying that out but I mean, this was for me. This was not a business thing at first. So I started doing this stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this really helps. Again, I realized that the power of having an intention with that cup of herbal tea. I started sharing it with my friends, family. They loved it. They started telling me, oh, by the way, I can't sleep. And I'm like, okay, I'll make you something. Oh, this is great. Boom. And it started snowballing. And then I was like, you know what, this feels like a gift, that I have. And I want to put that out in the world. So I switched the actual cannabis for hemp because cannabis, like THCT, is not legal in the Netherlands, despite what we might think. Also, hemp is legal in most European countries. It just made sense to do that. And I wanted 100% legal business, of course. And then things started happening, like meeting people. I met a wonderful friend who was a branding strategist, and she helped put my vision into something beautiful. And then we launched Bloem Moi on a Sunday, 13th of October 2019 in Amsterdam. I was working in an organic coffee shop. So the opposite of what I mentioned earlier about coffee shops, owned by women, 3 generations, absolutely gorgeous, plants everywhere, organic cannabis, beautiful drinks, beautiful cakes, like the best. And she let me do my pop-up there on a Sunday, rainy Sunday in Amsterdam. And that's how it all started.
Wow. It does sound like a gift that you have. And can you just clarify the difference between cannabis and hemp? Because you were saying
Yes,
you're using THC versus hemp in the teas.
of course. So cannabis, first of all, hemp is actually cannabis. Cannabis is the overall family, right? And within that family of cannabis, there's lots of different types. I mentioned THC. THC was one of the many components of cannabis. It's called a cannabinoid. I think to this day, they've discovered 102 different ones, and there's probably many more. CBD is also another cannabinoid. And each of these components have very specific properties and benefits. The THC is very known because that's the one that gets you high. It has many other properties, right? Pain relief, etc., etc. Now, within that cannabis family, you will have. I'm going to do very simple because there's a lot, but keeping it super simple. There's the THC kind, where you have that psychoactive effect, and there's other kinds, and including the CBD with low THC. When the THC is below that legal limit, that's what you call hemp. Typically, hemp has some CBD, other components as well, but not necessarily. Just like a THC strain might also have CBD, CBG, like the chemical profiles are completely different. But hemp is more of a, I guess, legal term that defines the type of cannabis that is legal because the THC level is below a certain level. In Europe, most countries is 0.2%, except for Switzerland, it's 1%. And I believe the US is 0.3%. So you have a very little amount of THC, which means you won't feel those psychoactive effects. And usually the CBD is higher or other components. But so hemp is the legal one that doesn't get you high.
Okay. So now that you're a few years in to Bloem Moi, are you still primarily creating these bespoke tea blends, or have you added anything else in?
So, because of my latest project, my Bloem Moi it's taken a bit of a side seat, and I've also really rearranged my priorities this year for logistical reasons, and then it turned out to make complete sense. So we still have the range of teas, right? Which is one seasonal blend that supports the body according to its seasonal needs. And then the sleepy blend, relaxing blend, hormonal balancing blend, and the focus and energy blend. So these are just the regular flagship offer. I've been really focusing on B2B and wholesale rather than to consumer market because it made more sense to find these partnerships that open up doors to new audiences. I have an amazing partner in Australia, for example. They're a ethical luxury goods company, and they already have what's the word, presence in a market. So they've opened some amazing doors for me, and they're also partnering with hospitality businesses, because my big vision is really to have my teas in luxury hotels, luxury rentals. That's really where I think that we should be, to accompany people's experiences and make it even more memorable. So I still have a website, we're still selling, we're still fulfilling orders, of course, but in terms of marketing and sales, my focus has been completely on the partnerships this year. And that includes my bespoke tea blends, which you have mentioned, which I do for businesses. So I work closely with the business and translate their business essence, branding, mission into a tea blend that they can then either sell or use as a gift for clients, or as a tool as part of the transformation that they provide, which is one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, that sounds so exciting. And really cool. Again, part of your gift, this translation of an experience that the business owner is trying to provide with a physical feeling that they could provide through your teas. Through this whole period, your love of animals remained, and your dream of this animal sanctuary remained, and you just opened it. Was it last year that Chez Amandine became reality? So what, you're running Bloem Moi, and things are going swimmingly, and then something happens. What was that thing that happened to set you on this path now of opening Chez Amandine?
I think it's a few things that happen, I guess. So I'm trying to think, how far should I go back? Well, first of all, I was in Amsterdam running my business, in a relationship, and then the pandemic happened, and I was also freelancing on the side, working in that coffee shop. A lot of my income streams stopped entirely because COVID. And so I had to look at what to do, and I moved back to my parents in Nice for a few years to not have that financial pressure, mortgage, etc., and went through a big healing phase. I left my parents' house when I was 18, and then being back at 33, that was a bit like, wow. It really felt like, while it was a choice, of course, it really felt like a step back. So that was a whole thing I dealt with. And then it became clear that I wasn't going to come back to Amsterdam, because I wanted to live in the countryside. That was something I just needed, that silence, that peace. And Amsterdam's wonderful. I just felt like I needed something else. So similarly, I only realized this as I was telling you the story earlier, in fact. Similarly to when I decided to move from Paris, in Nice, I knew I wasn't going to stay there. I knew I wanted something different. So I was like, oh, where should I go? I could go there. I could go there. So, and I couldn't make a move, because I guess I was older. It was scarier to think, oh, I'm just going to go up and leave and pick this random place. How do I know if I'm going to like it? And somebody told me about house sitting. So I was like, oh my God, this is great. I started house sitting in the countryside, thinking, let me double check I'm made for that countryside life. What if I hate it? I'm romanticizing. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I started house sitting, first time in the countryside in France, looking after some chickens and some cats. Absolutely loved it. It's just the peace, the cows there. I was like, okay, this is what I want. Is it here that I want it? I don't know. I kept doing some house sitting south of France, California, which was fabulous in different ways. And then I left for Spain. And Spain was at the top of my list with Ireland. And I decided to come to Spain. I found a really great house sitting with 3 goats. Love goats. some dogs and some cats. And this was in December 2022. And I never left. So the hosts of the house turned out to be wonderful people. We're still great friends now. I call them my adoptive Scottish parents. They told me I could stay however long I wanted. I ended up house sitting for them many times. And I was looking for a regular house in the country as a rental, while running my business, etc. And I will say that it's very complicated in Spain to rent something if you're self-employed. Everywhere I think it's more of a challenge, of course, than if you have a contract, but it's tough here, very tough. They really want the contract in Spain for a year or more, etc. Anyways, I'm looking around and then I find this beautiful farm already set up for animal living. And while I already had this dream of having a massive property and saving all the animals, in my mind it was for many years in the future, retirement age. But when I saw this place, I was like, wow. And then, it hasn't been easy. But I looked at it and I was like, okay, maybe we can make it work. There's a thing here, rental to buy. So I just had to try. I had to try and make this work. And that's how I ended up here. Started a crowdfunding campaign for the initial investment and care of the animals. And just been working on this since May last year.
Yeah. That makes me think of two things. Before I forget, the first one, I remember you told me years ago that you try and do something brave every day. And this move sounds like completely in line with your desire to do something brave every day. But can you just talk some more about how you decided to try? You said, I just had to try, but a lot of people wouldn't have tried.
Yeah, it's tough because honestly, when I look back, I'm like, I can't believe I did it because it was really a long shot. And it still is, this is still an ongoing thing. My thing cut off. It's still an ongoing thing, so I'm still working at it. But like I said before, when I see an opportunity for change or a need for change, I will go for it. And this was it for me because I was staying with my newfound friends, and which was great, but I don't like to be dependent on people. I needed my own place, that's for sure. And again, it was like my big vision I had been drawing and talking about and putting on vision boards had literally materialized in front of my eyes. Of course, I just had to try it. And there was a lot of skepticism around me, to be honest, and within me too sometimes, but I just had to believe. I just had to try. And of course, the thought of failing devastated me. When I thought about it, I was like, oh my God, what will people think? And of course, that would be the huge disappointment. But isn't it better to try and, fail or whatever, or than not trying and wondering? I think so.
Yeah. So tell us about the campaign, because it wasn't like, 1 month of crowdfunding. It was I remember there were many weeks of Amandine talking about Chez Amandine.
Gosh, that was intense. So I think initially I set the campaign for 33 days. Crowdfunding, funding, investing, all this was completely new to me, by the way. So I just went by blog post. A lot of them recommend around 30 days. I had a time constraint where I had already paid a deposit, but I was due paying the rest, a huge amount of money, by this certain date. So I put it for 30 days or 33 or something, and then I just showed up. I mean, what else was I to do, you know? So I filmed these little videos and showed up every day on my social media and messaged people. And, you know, when I look back, I'm like, who is she? Because today I feel like if being visible is so hard, and we've talked about this before, and as business owners, you know, we need to be really resilient and keep being visible over and over and over again. And it's hard. And right now I'm in a phase in my life where I'm not very visible at all, and I'm starting again. But I think I got a massive visibility hangover from that campaign, because it's a lot. It was so much energy, and you want to get people excited. And some days you're not excited because you think that's never going to happen because you didn't get any donations or contributions the day before. And so you're like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make this work? It's not going to work. Should I give up now? Like, you know, and you keep showing up and showing up and showing up. And it's all this energy. And of course, most of it is support, but there's also the odd, you know, not supportive person, and that really gets you down, and you need to pick yourself up again. And I think after everything was finished and I was here, I processed it all, and some of the stuff really stayed with me. And again, like, I feel like I'm only just stepping out again now, being more open about this place, because this is not about me. This is about the animals, and it's about people getting to come here. It's a really special place. And so I needed to get over this feeling so judged and like that visibility hangover. But it was a lot. It was a lot.
Mm-hmm. How much were you trying to raise? Do you mind sharing?
Originally, the goal was, I think, no, not at all. The goal was 68,000, I think, something like that. And we
In
raised
33
in
days.
total on the platform. Yeah. It was extended. I did extend the campaign because I got a bit more time. We raised on the platform 10K, if I'm correct, just under 10K, I believe. And off platform, because people, you know, friends, family, they didn't use the platform. In that first round, a total of almost 15K. So, you know, that was great.
Yeah.
And I will say I was really far from my goal. But it's awesome to be able to do that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you, just for anyone who's wondering about doing a crowdfunding campaign themselves, do you have any insights, words of advice based on your experience?
Any tips? Many tips. I mean, ideally, first of all, we had a massive time constraint. So what you'll read everywhere is that you need to prepare. Ideally, you want to be building your audience before you start the crowdfunding campaign. This is what they do for these massive millions campaigns. They really prep the audience, warm audience. They build it sometimes for years if it's a company that's established, right? So if you can, you know, take 2-3 months at least to build an audience, tell about your vision, give them an opportunity to get to know you and your project, because that will bring people on board. When you launch your campaign, it won't be like, oh, what's this? What's she doing? What, you know, like maybe it was for me. And then I would say during the campaign, I mean, if you're doing a crowdfunding, I'm going to assume that you believe in what your project is, what your product is, whatever. But that's key. You need to believe, and you need to surround yourself with people who believe, because there are going to be some days where you don't believe as much, and you need these people to be like, hey, you can do this. You're amazing. Remember what you're building. For me, it was, friends reminded me, like, this is so much bigger than you. This is not about you bothering someone, sending them a message. This is about you potentially helping so many animals and people and a community by building something like this, So you need to be able to remind yourself this, look after your energy and yourself, like I shared, it's very intense, especially if you're doing it on your own. I would say get some help if you can, but you're still going to have to show up all the time and talk to everybody about this campaign. And, you're going to have best friends who are not going to contribute, and people you haven't seen in 20 years who will, or you have just met now. It's going to shake up your view of things, and you've got to keep going and not take it personally. And it's a lot easier said than done, but yeah, look after yourself.
Yeah, it sounds like a huge effort. And then, as you said, you had this visibility hangover afterward that you're still sort of feeling the effects of today. But can you share what your vision is for Chez Amandine, and which animals are currently living on the property?
Yes. So right now, we have 4 donkeys, soon to be 5. We've got a pregnant donkey. I was told she was already pregnant before, but now I don't think so. But that's a different story. A mare, 3 ducks right now, 9 geese, 1 goat, 17 chickens, 3 cats, and we just got a puppy, arrived on Saturday. He was abandoned in a watermelon field, and that's everything. Oh no, I'm fostering 2 doves as well right now.
Okay, I was trying to count and then I lost track. Do you know the total number?
It's 40 plus. It varies because sadly sometimes sometimes we lose one of the animals, but yeah.
So you live on this property with 40 animals, give or take.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
And so you asked me about you asked me about this bigger vision, right? So to paint a bit of a picture, this is a huge property. I think it translates to around 9 acres, a bit more. No, not acres, hectares, 9 hectares, 90,000 meters square. And the big vision is, of course, to welcome more animals, have the place more secure, predator, and converting some of the buildings. I'm not using the old chicken coop that used to house 300 chickens for commercial reasons. Turn it into a beautiful retreat center with accommodation, common area, kitchen, because my really long-term vision is to host retreats here. And by that, I mean invite people to host their own retreats. Will probably host my own as well, but really I want people to be able to experience this place. We're on top of a hill in the middle of the countryside. It's nature's in silence. I couldn't think of a better place to go retreat, literally, and be closer to yourself by being closer to nature. So that's the big vision, to be able to invite people to experience it in that way. I mentioned certifying for zootherapy earlier. That's definitely something I want to do. Animal assisted coaching, animal therapy, both with people with special needs, elderly people who would come to the farm, opening it up to the community, schools in the area, to, show them. We live in a rural area, but there's a lot of kids that don't experience animals in this way. As in, they're here to live a good life and not to produce. So I think it's really important. I don't know if you can hear the donkey in the background. Who's getting hungry. So so there's lots of projects right now I'm doing. I'm starting piece by piece. I'm doing sanctuary tours for people. People can come pick up manure that I have so much of for their own gardens, for small donations. We also produce olive oil, and sometimes people buy the happy chicken eggs. So I really want this to be a community, and it takes time, but it's starting to build.
Yeah.
So lots of projects, lots of ideas. What we need right now is really time to build it and capital to make it happen. So
Yeah. I just had this thought actually. Did you speak Spanish before you moved to Spain?
yes, not
Oh,
fluently, yeah, but I speak Spanish. Yes.
okay. So it's not like you had to take lessons on top of learning how to run the farm.
I didn't catch that last bit.
I said it's not like you had to take Spanish lessons as well as learning how to run
Oh,
the farm when you moved there.
I did. I'm taking Spanish lessons. I mean, I took Spanish in school, right, in high school. And my dad is from Spain, but he never spoke Spanish to us as kids. So the basic, but yeah, I had to take Spanish lessons. I'm still learning, but I have a really great farm vocabulary that I don't have in English, for example, because I never lived on a farm in England. And probably not in French either, which is kind of hilarious. And there's some basic stuff in like past tense is really hard for me, and I can't say that. So, but getting there.
Yeah. Wow. So I didn't realize or forgot that your dad was Spanish. Is he so happy that you moved to Spain? Is your dad happy that you moved to Spain, or your parents generally? What do they think about your venture?
Um, my parents have been really supportive. I think they were a little bit surprised at first, and there was this thing. So my dad's from the Barcelona area, so Catalonia. I mean, it's more of a joke, and I'm in the Valencia like community. There's like this rivalry. He makes a lot of jokes about that, but they love it here, and it's also now I can speak Spanish to my parents. My mom was a Spanish teacher, so she also speaks Spanish, and this is something that we've never had. And so now when they come visit, we're speaking Spanish, and sometimes when we're chatting. So I really like that actually, and they're teaching me stuff, and I'm very conscious about my Spanish because I feel like it should be a lot better than it is, but I'm just trying my best. Like, yeah.
Wow. So what was the hardest thing about moving there to the property particularly? Because I know you were house sitting in Spain before.
What was the first part of that? Sorry, that completely cut off.
The hardest thing about moving to Chez Amandine, what was it?
Oh, so honest. Oh, pick one. Honestly, it's how do I put this? So I've lived alone for many years, despite the back at my parents' thing for a bit. So I'm very independent, and I love to live on my own, and I love the calm and etc. Yet here it was this other level, because obviously everything is new. There's a lot of land to manage. There's a lot of decisions to make on a daily basis. And I've really felt that weight on my shoulders thing. Like this, I felt like this place is not meant to be run alone, you know? And while I've got amazing help from from a retired farmer who used to work on this farm in the village. He's like a granddad to me now, and his family is wonderful, and he knows everything. And if I have a problem, I call him, he's there. I still would like to figure it out, you know, and it's sometimes you feel so powerless, I guess. I don't know how to fix things, you know, I'm not really a DIYer. And that's, I think, really missing, because things break all the time. And sometimes it's minor stuff. Sometimes it's quite important. Like we had a big storm in October, September, and one of the pen like barrier thing divider fell, and the male donkey got into the female donkeys, and I might have 3 pregnant donkeys. You know, and I wasn't able to fix it right away. I kind of fixed it the way I could, but it wasn't really holding. Like, okay, so that's a bit of a bummer. And then things that are like really important and can be really dramatic is no water. It's something, we had a problem with the water, and the animals get this automatic water supply. And when they don't, and it's hot, like almost 40 degrees, that could be, you know, really, really serious. So, and some things like that, I had to figure it out. I was like, I'm not a plumber. Gaspar's not coming for another few hours, so I'm going to figure it out. Actually, that day I didn't even call him until I tried to, and I fixed it myself, and that was amazing. That was a great feeling. I was like, yes, I can do things. But yeah, the handling of everything. And in my big vision, I didn't mention that, but in my big vision, I'm not alone. You know, I've got amazing people to support this place, you know, whether it's a land manager, well, I guess Gaspar's the land manager, or volunteers for the animals, which now I have, but very punctually. Someone who looks after the gardens, or, you know, very specific support.
Yeah. Wow. So now that you're on the other side of this dream, you know, you wanted to make it come to life, and now you're here. You mentioned that being difficult, being on your own, but generally, how does it feel?
Yeah, it's a funny one, this, because you think, oh, you get it, and then it's like you just feel you're in it. I'm working on this because I think some days I forget how far I've come, and that I'm literally living my dream life. But it's this balance of living your dream life and all the challenges that go with it. And of course, we tend to focus on what's going wrong. So, and I have this tendency of, I go for massive goal and I get it, and then I'm happy for 2 minutes, and then it's like, okay, what's next? So that's been work in itself, to like stay in gratitude and stay connected to the bigger vision, not just be like, okay, I'm here. And then you just have this other massive step, and it's like, is it possible? Do I give up now? Keep going? And like, very conflicting. And yeah.
Yeah. So how do you manage that?
How do I manage that? Well, I have practices to ground me. Like, I need to remind myself, it's a really annoying fly. I have to remind myself every day that, you know, I'm here. I did it. I'm here. There's other challenges coming up, and I can make that work too. So, yeah, spending more time outside really helps, more time with the animals, because when I get stressed about, oh, I don't have enough time to spend on my business and I need to spend more time on my business to make money to be able to run this place, then you kind of forget about all the good things that you have around you, and actually, like, this is what you fought for being here. So it's all about, in the morning, I sit outside with my coffee. It's really silly, but for a while I forgot about this and I wasn't. And just sitting there in the nature, or I sit more by my chickens as well. Like, I just love them. And just, that's the whole life I wanted. So in the evening, sitting there outside, with as the sun sets and just staring at the stars, at the horizon. And this is something I was really doing at the beginning. And then for some reason, it's that feeling, it kind of fizzles out, right? As new challenges rise up and you lose sight of what matters. So it's all about these little reminders and surrounding myself with people who believe, right? Because there's also, despite the fact that I'm here, etc., a lot of people see how hard it is, and it's like they want me to give up or something, or maybe that's my projection, but they're like, oh, it's so, are you still happy, do you feel like you made a good decision, or, and it's like, yeah. You want to be around the people that are like, look what you've done, you're amazing, look where you're going, like, look what you're doing for these animals, like, that's the people I want to hear from.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. It's so true though, because I mean, I've moved and done things as well. Like everyone can relate, I think, to having a goal, achieving the goal, and then if it's an ongoing thing, like you moved and now you have an animal sanctuary to build and a retreat center to like build. Um, Now it's reality, and so the goalpost and the sense of accomplishment and achievement, like you said, it fizzles or it moves. And so you have to remind yourself regularly, oh no, this is what I thought, this is what I worked so hard for, and this is actually really great. And you do that, I think, as you said, through the small moments, sitting with your chickens in the morning and being grateful for the sunrise or the sunset that you can see. It's those things that ground us in what we've done and help us feel good about it, feel great about what it is. And I watched you. First, we spoke about you wanting this sanctuary. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. And the way that you talked about it was definitely, it'll be when I'm in retirement age, it'll be years from now, but I want to make this happen. It's like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And then the next thing I knew, you were crowdfunding because you found the sanctuary. And then not only that, but you moved in. And now, like you said, you have more animals than I could count. Donkeys and chickens. And that's really incredible, like to think about. And in such a short amount of time, from my perspective, because I haven't known you that long. So, but you get caught up in the
Yes.
day to day.
And it wasn't really in the works. Honestly, like
Yeah.
I said, it just happened.
Yeah, yeah. But I think what that also shows is the importance of knowing the big picture, what you want, what kind of lifestyle you want, the goals you have for your life, so that when opportunities arise, you can pursue them. Because if you didn't know one day I want an animal sanctuary, would you have put the pieces together the way that you did for this place? It's doubtful, you know?
Oh, for sure not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so important to have a big vision. And yeah. And so many people like you have said that I've spoken to over the years have said, oh, you said you wanted to do that. Oh, you have an animal sanctuary. I remember you saying you wanted to save all the animals when we spoke like 5 years ago. I was like, yeah. And these
Yeah.
are great reminders as well. Like, yeah. And you did it. Like, hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So now there are new challenges, but like this is still a huge accomplishment. What was I going to ask about managing? Oh, two things again. So staying with the theme of achieving a dream, your dream is so different than most people's in our society, like in the Western world or in just modern times, you know, who really wants to go back to living on a farm and having to fix pen gates because a storm knocked them over, you know? How do you find, do you feel sort of separate at all, or do you get kind of feedback that makes you feel different because your dream is not to live in a big city and have a family and I don't know, whatever?
Well, I mean, people, some people are really having a hard time to understand, wrap themselves around this single woman, French woman in Spain, in the countryside, doing what I'm doing. And I'm like, people from here, they're just like, really? Like, and do you have, so you have your husband is helping you? No, I don't have a husband. Or you live there with your family? No, I live on my own. Really? Like, when my parents came to visit, they stopped at my cousins and my dad's near Barcelona, like, so on the way. And they told me that my dad's cousin husband was really like, but a French woman, like, alone over there, like, really just not grasping it. Like, yeah, it's baffling a lot of people. And I think it's really not necessarily the farm aspect, because I think, like, especially post-pandemic, my social media is just farms these days and food. But you see a lot of people going back to these kind of roots, even if they have no background in farming or whatever, like getting a little cottage and having some ducks. And like, I don't think that's that surprising anymore. But I think this single woman thing is surprising to a lot of people. Yeah.
And how do you respond?
Yeah.
How do you respond when you get this sort of shock? I'm kind of curious for myself as well, because I'm at an age now where people want to tell me what I should be doing or shouldn't be doing based on my age and marital status. And I'm not anywhere near as out there as living on a farm by myself.
Yeah, I think people have a lot of opinions, right? Especially when it comes to women's lives. But that's an entirely different conversation. How do I respond? Well, I'm just like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I mean, I'm not also. It's people that ask. I'm never going to, oh, I'm this single woman, do it. Like, obviously, people will ask, oh, so you always the question, you have a partner, you have a husband, you have the. No, but you live on your own over there. Yeah, I like it. Oh, really? And then I'm like, yeah, I really like it. And it's true. I think it would make me uncomfortable if if it wasn't true, but I love it. Like, you know, I love going to the city from time to time, but every time I leave, I'm like, or when I'm there and it's loud and this and that, I'm like, I really like living in the countryside. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just
I think
have
it
to,
goes,
like, yeah.
I think that goes back to what we had just been talking about, this being your dream. This is what you wanted. So it makes sense that you would enjoy it because, well, maybe not. Sometimes people get what they want and it's not what they expected. But thankfully, you made this happen and it is what you want. And you get reminded whenever you leave, like, oh no, I prefer my life in the countryside. So how do you manage both ventures day to day? Because you said, you know, your business helps you to pay for developing the farm, but also keeps you from being on the farm or enjoying the farm. what is a day in the life like for you?
Well, I was just going to say that it's also, things change, right? Like 10 years ago, I started to have this nudge for the country life. But let's say 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I always lived in the city. I loved the city, and I would love a country escape from time to time, but just loved coming back. And then it kind of shifted, and now it's the opposite. And that's totally fine, because in different period of times, you need different things. As per day in the life, I mean, mostly I'm here at the farm. First thing I do is go to the animals, feed everybody, check everybody's there. Then I will have my coffee outside, do my journaling. I'm really trying to get back into yoga because I've lost that streak. So do my yoga and start working. During the academic year, I have Spanish class twice a week in the morning. But basically, it's me at the farm. Then there's animal lunch, my lunch, working, dinner. And on Fridays, I play the flute in a village band. So I have rehearsal every Friday night. And sometimes at the weekend, I go to Valencia to see a friend, or
Yeah.
or when I have fitness classes as well. But actually, it packs up really quickly.
So how do you
But it's
how do you find navigating both? Like, are you planning to get any more help either on your business or on the Chez Amandine property?
So the word is starting to spread. I'm getting more volunteers. I also use a platform called Workaway, where people come and stay with you for like a week or two and help out. Yeah, it's awesome. So I've done that a few times. And then right now I have these teenage girls that live nearby who come by a couple of times a week. And I mean, we're not doing like hardcore stuff. They're mostly walking around taking photos and cuddling the animals, which is totally fine. But they also help me sorry, the donkeys are going mental. They also help me, clean up the place and stuff. So that's been nice. And more people are saying they'd like to come and volunteer. And that's where I'm going. I'm going to really send out a volunteer call this month to start in September. I'm connected to a dog shelter here, and she's been running for many years, more than 10 years. And she has built an operation that's so impressive. She's got Monday volunteers, Monday, Thursday, I think, and Tuesday, Friday. And like every day there's people, looking after the animals, giving them their medicines. Like, it's just a really well-oiled machine, and I really aspire to have something like this. And I think I really underestimate how many people love animals and want to help. So yeah, that's really something I want to get help on. And there's things like, the facilities are absolutely fine. There's little improvements I need to do basically all the time. Like right now, secure the donkey pen. A bigger project is to raise the fences, like to make it super predator proof. That's going to be a lot of money and a lot of work. But I think little by little, with some help, we can absolutely get there.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for people who maybe they want to open an animal sanctuary and retreat center, or they just have some other dream that's big and maybe a little bit scary? What would you tell them?
So I just had advice.
Yeah.
For people
who are doing something that something that no one else around them has ever done. Like, you've not mentioned anyone in your family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh no. Well, my great grandma on my mother's side was a farmer. No, not my great grandma, my great great grandma. So long time ago. And that's it, really.
Yeah. And I don't think you
And I
didn't
feel
meet her, did
weirdly
you?
connected to her. No,
Yeah.
no, no, no. But and my mom only knew her like tiny bit when she was young, and so she doesn't really have that many memories and stuff. But I felt weirdly connected to her, and of course, my grandma, my dad's mom, she wasn't a farmer at all, but she was born in Spain, and I've also felt newfound connection to her since being here. But to answer your question, and I was going to say that earlier when we were talking about the people being surprised and not really understanding. Firstly, nobody has to understand but yourself, right? And you will need to remind yourself of what you have, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. Whenever I remind myself that this is so much bigger than me, then I'm completely fine. Like it's just like this is so much bigger than me, or my ego, or whatever. I'm not doing this for me, and so whatever this person says doesn't matter. It's just so much bigger. And also, you need to remember that even if you're doing exactly what you've dreamt of for many years, it doesn't mean it's not going to be challenging. Even if you live your dream life, I mean, it depends what you're doing, I guess, but it's been hard. Like some days is hard. You will question everything, like most things we do in life, right? One point it gets really hard, and you have to remind yourself of everything you've built and how far you've come and everything you're doing and why you're doing it. And it really helps to surround yourself. I think this is key, right? Surround yourself with people who believe in you, who know why you're doing what you're doing, and who believe in that, and who will be there to remind you, hey, this is what you're doing, you're doing amazing, keep going, I'm here for you. And while I'm physically quite isolated, although I do have some great friends nearby, but it doesn't matter whether they're physically here or on the phone. Just talk to people, your people, so they can reflect that back to you and remind you what you're doing, how important it is, and why it's important.
Yeah, that's great advice. So thank you so much for spending some of your morning with us. It was great to hear some more about your journey and what it's been like on the other side of the crowdfunding campaign, the daily. And I think it's such a good reminder as well that your dreams can come true and your life still isn't going to be perfect and feel like rainbows and daisies every day. But that doesn't mean that your work's not meaningful or that your effort wasn't worth it or that your dream was even wrong, you know? So if someone wanted to connect with
Yes.
you to support Chez Amandine, or maybe they are a wholesaler or they work for a luxury hotel brand and they want to get some of your amazing hemp-based teas, where can they go?
Oh, you're back. Can you tell me what you just said, please?
Yes.
I'm so sorry about my rural internet, by the way. It's been terrible lately, and it's normally not that bad.
I'm just inviting you to tell people how they can get in touch, either because they're interested in
Oh,
supporting Chez
yes.
Amandine or because they want to work with Bloem Moi.
So this is showing on LinkedIn, right? So probably an easy
Mhm.
way to find me is through my LinkedIn profile. Or we have an Instagram for Chez Amandine. That's where I post the most updates. So expect cute animal photos and videos. And it's Chez, CHEZ _ Amandine.
Mm-hmm. So all the links will
Yes.
be in the, if you're watching on YouTube, all the links will be in the description box. And yeah, you can just connect with Amandine on LinkedIn. Any last words for our guests?
Go for it. This conversation has been a really great reminder. So thank you so much for having me, Gabrielle, because I think we lose sight of how far we've come and the decisions we've made and the things we've gone for. And because when we're in it, it doesn't feel like a leap, does it? And so if you've got this big dream and you're scared, and go for it. What's the worst thing that can happen? Right? just try it. And it might be a great lesson. It will definitely be a great lesson, probably many, and it might be exactly what you wanted all along. So
yeah, absolutely. So thank you, everyone. This has been another conversation in the Summer of Stories series. I'm so happy that we got to hear, Amandine, your completely new perspective to everyone else that I've been able to talk to so far. But still with this theme of being the first, doing something new and different and very challenging. And so I'll be back next week with another business owner talking about the stories behind their brand. And in the meantime, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my channel so you'll know right away who this next guest is going to be. And I've also got a pop-up Facebook community, which I will link in the YouTube box as well, so that you can join that and we can take this conversation deeper, talk about how you can tell your story and how you can leverage your story to build your brand, which is something, Amandine, we didn't get into it, but when you were doing your crowdfunding campaign, sharing your vision, sharing your story for what the property was going to be. So yeah, that's it for today. We will be back next week, and ciao for now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Bye.